Friday, April 10th, 2026. I don't think I've talked about the current state of geopolitics yet, so let's dance with that topic for a bit. If you are watching this in the future, well, what's going on right now is in the US, where I live, we have been engaged in a war with Iran for the past month or so. There was a ceasefire declared that seems to have never actually been put in place, or was broken 5 hours later because Israel wasn't at the negotiating table and decided they weren't done bombing civilians in Lebanon and were mad that they were left out of said treaty negotiation. I've always lived by the axiom that problems are okay to talk about, but you should at least have a proposed solution if you plan on talking about them. So, my proposed solution to the United States' current geopolitical problems, first of all, are not necessarily feasible, do not cover the entire scope of the damage control that will be necessary as a go-forward solution, but is going to be presented in order to spark further refinement of the general guidance issued here. In short, all the shot callers in the government should be able to play Civilization and beat it on a hard difficulty in games that go through the modern era. As part of their training, frankly. There should be a month dedicated to full-time geopolitics game and Civilization to the top of my list. So let's break that down a bit. So the shot callers I'm talking about here are going to include any executive branch leadership and cabinet, anyone with like a director or higher title in any State Department role, and military officers. We are aiming to establish an understanding of the role of political relations, defense and warfare, technology, and territory control. All that with respect really to the era of development that civilizations are or have been in since, say, the Stone Age, kind of loosely abstracted up through the modern era. So what is Civilization? Well, it is a beloved and long-lived franchise of video games first published in 1991, produced and programmed by Sid Meier. It has had regular sequels and expansions, the latest of which is Civilization VII, which was published in February of last year. There are mechanical and artistic variations between the different games, but for the sake of the proposal above, we're going to focus on similarities across the franchise. So you play as the de facto and unembodied ruler of a civilization, typically beginning in the Stone Age in 4000 BC, progressing as far as the modern day, and typically a bit beyond. One of the victory conditions that you're going to see often is to build a rocket ship to take your civilization and go colonize Alpha Centauri. You get to choose what to build, how to expand, and what your civilization focuses on. Such as science, culture, or military production. Time progresses quickly at first, hundreds of years per turn, but slows dramatically as you pass into the years AD and through the Industrial Revolution. The early game is mostly about exploration and expansion, building new cities, and taking territory as you explore the world around you. In the mid-game, the land has been gobbled up, and you either need to focus on being the smartest and getting advanced tech, being a cultural mecca, and or taking land from your neighbors. This is generally the gameplay loop, with all those strategies being pretty equally viable until well past the Industrial Revolution. As you progress into the 20th century, warfare changes significantly with the introductions of artillery, with flight, and with nuclear weapons. You also see defense pacts everywhere, as the different civilizations left in the 20th century and beyond have often banded together, especially if any of the superpowers in the game have been ominously growing in size via conventional warfare and military acquisition. Abstracted? Sure, absolutely, but Civilization is my top pick for games that will secretly make you learn stuff, as well as probably game that will have you accidentally playing far deeper into the night than you'd intended. There is a tremendous amount of thought put into the game's systems and the history that sync really well together. For example, the concept of strategic resources plays well into understanding some of the broader geopolitical events happening in our lifetimes and this year. In the game, for example, you need to secure oil to make tanks and advanced aircraft, or uranium to make nuclear weapons. And those are a couple of the primary drivers of war in the kind of pre-modern to modern eras. As someone who has put several hundred hours into games of civilization over the years, I can tell you that some of the United States' recent geopolitical decisions would be remedied had the deciders put some more hours into games of civilization. When I was a young dictator, first playing the game Civilization II Test of Time, which I got on CD-ROM from a computer store around 1999 or 2000, I always liked to go big science to out-tech my opponents, and I don't really think I played too many challenging games at the time. I played a lot of Civilization 3 in high school, and then Civilization 4 in college. And as I cranked up the difficulty as I played the games, I learned that you cannot just all-out nerd your way to guns if you happen to start near Montezuma or Genghis Khan. You need to be able to defend yourself, and a sizable standing army generally contributes to the security of your citizens and adds bargaining power to your diplomatic options. I played up through Civilization 6, haven't picked up 7 yet, probably will someday when I find it on Super Sale. And my go-to playstyle has ultimately become that which I once feared. I am often the Genghis Khan, the Bismarck, or the Julius Caesar that you don't want to start next to. But as a now seasoned warmongering dictator, the folly of this current war is just too much to pass up a bit of commentary on. In Civ terms, we are post-nukes, modern era. We've got two notable superpowers on the board on a very large map, and in an age where territory expansion through traditional warfare is still technically possible, it's certainly not usually quick or easy. In this late stage of the game, you're looking at win conditions. Space race and cultural victories are both in sight for the US, though our hobby of outsourcing has just been handing the Global South free techs for luxuries for decades, so the tech lead really isn't as sizable as it once was. Diplomatic victory might have been in the cards 60 years ago, not so much today. So we are in a situation where we have plenty of oil, a nuclear stockpile, and the most teched up military on the board. But we do not have the kind of lead we need to go for a domination or territory control victory here in 2026. You've got to have a valid casus belli in order to move troops into or bomb another nation. And in the US, that typically comes in the form of a declaration of war from Congress. Legal technicalities be damned, this was set to cause a huge war weariness debuff to the American population right off the bat. And man, oh man, hope you didn't need any trade routes going through the nation or around the nation you just attacked. They're all shut off, and if you thought popular support was bad before, well, it's going to get way worse once those resources you're buying from the region stop getting to your people. In the game, you'd probably just cut your losses at this point, and either go back a few autosaves, where we were actually doing quite well, or just start a new game. But when I run the world, we will be closely monitoring save scumming until the government shot callers are practiced enough at civilization not to get themselves into this sort of blunder, because we can't really open up an old save in real life. In Civ, it would just mean an unsatisfying end of game screen where a rival nation hits Alpha Centauri first. In the real world, the consequences are going to be much more abstract, but just as disappointing.